Hi, guys. I wanted to come on with a word real quick. So, the word that I felt in my spirit was they did not let you go. God rescued you. They did not let you go. God rescued you. So, I wanted to just come on and share that sometimes when we go through situations with certain people and we think that that person has either left us or this could be anything, right? It could be a relationship, it could be a job, whether they let you go on a job and, or if they left you in a relationship or whatever it is, right? It's important to remember that sometimes when God removes people or situations from our life, it's not because they're leaving us and it's not because they're choosing that. It's really because God is rescuing us and He has something better for us. What tends to happen though is sometimes we could look at those situations or those relationships, and what we can do is we can start to internalize it and think that there's something that maybe we must have done wrong, or there's even like shame attached to it, right? And we can go like through the whole gamut of feeling frustrated, feelings of anger, feelings of just sometimes even grief. We can go through the stages of grief, fear, denial, anger, uh, bargaining, and until we get to acceptance. But the thing to remember is that God's word says that He orders our steps, and nothing can happen in our life without His approval, even if we think it's something bad or if it's something that we feel like sad about. And a lot of times when we internalize it and we take it personal and we think it's something that we must have done wrong, sometimes we might have even been praying to God in that relationship and that situation to rescue us, right? So it's interesting because sometimes we can even be praying to God that He would either change the situation or that something would happen to remove that situation or stop it, and then when God removes it, we think of it as something that is bad, right? Even if you think of like some toxic relationships or toxic work situations or whatever it could be, right? Like we can be asking and praying for God to come in and to move on our behalf. And then when He sends the answer, we are sometimes we're just like dumbfounded and we don't understand, and we're blaming ourselves, or we're thinking of what we could have done differently, or we're internalizing it and taking it personally, like there's a shame attached to it, like there's something maybe that we did wrong of why that happened, when really it's the Lord who answered our prayer. But what tends to happen is we forget that when we're going through it, because sometimes we can be so familiar and so comfortable in a situation that it's almost like if God didn't do that, then we would still stay in it. We would still stay in that toxic relationship and in that toxic circumstance and not realize that God just literally answered my prayer. So instead of celebrating and thanking God, we're like feeling all kinds of self-pity and boo-hooing and woe is me and how could this happen, and we don't realize that God actually answered our prayer, because that's what we were praying for. And, we can start to even feel shame attached with it, right? And sometimes, it's like they say, the familiar chaos that I know is better than the uncertainty that I don't know. And sometimes we can get so comfortable in these situations and in these relationships that are so toxic and that are so unhealthy for us that we don't even realize while we're in it the damage that it's causing us, the trauma that we're having, the stress that we're going through, the frustration that we feel. And, we're crying out to God to change things. We're crying out to God to remove us from that situation or that circumstance or that relationship. And then when He finally does it, we, like, a domestic violence survivor, we will start to miss it, and we'll start to romanticize and reminisce about the good times, right? And we don't realize, like, what this situation was really like. We forget, right? Like, we tend to forget, like, how bad it actually really was when we were going through it. And we forget how we were crying out to God to rescue us and to redeem us from the situation. And when He finally does, it's so interesting, the dynamic and the phenomenon of, what we go through when we experience that, and we start to miss it. We start to, like I said, we start to long for it, like the Egyptian or the Israelites. So when they longed to go back to Egypt, right? It's like they were crying out to God for hundreds, I don't even know how many years, hundreds of years, I think. And they were crying out to God. They were being, just enslaved and beaten and killed and tormented and under such harsh, cruelty and treatment in Egypt, and crying out to God for deliverance, crying out to God to rescue them, crying out to God for a redeemer, crying out. And finally God rescues them, and they come out, and at first they're excited, and it's really, a relief, and we can experience that relief. And then, when we don't know what's next, and we're uncertain about what we're going to do next, because they say that the earth can't stand the void. So when we don't know what our next step is, or we don't know where God is taking us next, and we have that uncertainty and that unfamiliarity of that vacuum or that emptiness, then it's easy to get tempted to desire to go back to Egypt and start, reminiscing about the leaks and the whatever that they were saying in the Bible, that they started to romanticize and reminisce and remember, the leaks and all these different things that they had in Egypt. And they forgot that they were being, enslaved and under cruel taskmasters, and they were getting beaten and abused, and just all this mistreatment. And they started to long for that abuse. They started to say, well, we need to go back because it's scary, right? Like I said, like when we don't know what we're up against or what we're going to face next, like we could start to, like I said, just the unfamiliar seems so foreign to us that we'd rather go back to the comfort of Egypt and the familiarity of, even though it was chaotic and it was abusive and we were crying out to be rescued. So I just wanted to come on and share this word that I really feel like I really felt in my spirit, that sometimes it's easy to think that that person left us, and but no, that person didn't leave. That person, didn't abandon us. Like, we were rescued by God. God answered our prayer. It's a time of celebration. It's a time of rejoicing. It's a time of expectancy, and not to fear the future, and not to look back like Lot's wife and get stuck and get frozen in a time where we were crying out to God just, not too long ago to rescue us, and he did, and he sent help. And so I think it's just an important reminder to remember that when we're going through that, to really thank God and to rejoice and to be grateful and to celebrate the victory that God rescued us. We were not abandoned. They didn't leave us. Whether it's a relationship, they didn't let us go. Whatever it's a job or whatever we're going through, God came in and he rescued us and he answered our prayer. And just remember that when you're going through that today, or if you're watching this sometime in the future, that God answered our prayer. And just don't forget where he brought you from. And all right, guys, I will talk to you in the next video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and if you're coming back, welcome again. Please don't forget to hit like, give a thumbs up, and share this message with all those that need to hear it. And don't forget to follow us on our other social media platforms, or on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website is tamarshopeusa.org. And I will see you all in the next video. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.